Hello, Internet. Long time no talk. My hair, yes, thank you for noticing. It's looking lovely. I saw a video online by Kevin Powell, who is it's like CSS YouTuber educator guy. He's very wonderful guy. Absolutely check out his videos. He made a video called "The Problem with AI Lowering Barriers," which caught my eye. I don't know. I've been thinking about a lot of this stuff a lot. Like I use AI to do programming. I don't know. There's maybe four different ways you could go as a programmer. You've been programming for a long time. AI comes out and you either hate it or you love it, or you haven't been programming very long and AI comes out and you hate it or love it. We've got maybe four camps to put people in. I have been programming for a long time, 30 something years, and I love what AI has done for programming. And lowering barriers, I think, is one of the things I'm most excited about. I've never been gatekeepery about like programming. I've always wanted more people to program. More people just make stuff. It's great. People have great ideas. Make stuff, and programming is hard. So how excellent now, in my mind, that the barrier has been lowered through this wonderful thing called AI. So what was the problem? The number one problem that he cited, which I think a lot of people like, this is not new, is the slop. Right? There's a lot of junk being created, and I've always made an analogy in my mind. And again, having I don't know, everyone says I look pretty young, but I don't know, I'm 43 now. I remember Neocities, and I don't know if you know Neocities, but there was a time on the internet, difficult though it may be to believe today, that no one had any kind of personal presence on the internet. That was not something people could do. There was no such thing as like, go to this URL and you will see anything about me. That did not exist. And then Neocities. There were other tools, but Neocities was a big one. Neocities popped up and was like, hey guys, anyone in the world, you can come to our website and make your own website, make your own personal presence on the internet. I don't remember if like Neocities and Myspace what the timing is there. I think Neocities was, yeah, Neocities has to have been before Myspace. But yeah, SLOP. SLOP was created. If you've ever seen those funny like meme pictures of like 90s websites with animated GIFs in the background and shit, like that's real. That happened. That's what people were making because suddenly a democratization of a process, I guess, right, of a skill. Now you didn't need to know a bunch of HTML and CSS and blah blah blah. You could make your very own personal website and give people a URL, and they would see all about you and your dog. And that was like the joke. Everyone and their dog had a website. It was just funny to me because now everyone and their dog has a Facebook profile and or an Instagram and or I don't know. Do dogs have TikToks? I bet they do. Um, So yes, there was a lot of slop. We didn't call it that at the time. Obviously the word slop existed, but it didn't have that meme, right? AI slop now is a meme term. But if you went back in time, you would 100% be looking at this stuff being like, oh my God, what is all this Neocity slop? What is all this MySpace slop? What is all this WordPress slop? Like all these tools that have made it easier for people to make things have resulted in slop. That's what happens every time. So when people are getting all, I don't know, the term AI slop has bothered me, I think, in part because it's like, this is always what happens. This isn't new. A new tool, a new incredible tool, something way more impactful than NeoCities, right? Like LLMs are, right? So many domains are affected. Now people can make art and they can make code and they can make music and a lot of it's going to be slop. Of course, obviously. But like, if you don't remember NeoCities, and even if you do, I'm sure you realize most people do not, or care or think about it, even if you knew. Why does no one think about it? It doesn't matter. The fact that NeoCities generated all that slop, no one cares. It doesn't matter. It all went away. I think because people learn pretty quickly, right? Well, there's probably a social pressure and embarrassment. It's like, oh God, I have created slop, right? You know it too when you first see it, or you can tell the reactions of other people. You know that you're not making something great, and a lot of people will bounce off, right? At that point, they're like, okay, I made my stupid website, fine. Oh, now there's MySpace. I'll do that instead. It's a little better. Or oh, now there's Facebook. Facebook says you can't do as much. Whatever. Anyway, that's not the point. The other side is, though, that you have people who do stick with it, right? They're the people who learn the HTML and the CSS, and then when MySpace comes out, they're in there tweaking all the CSS for their MySpace page, right? Tumblr, I think, lets you do some of that stuff too, right? WordPress. Again, Facebook has said, no, actually don't do that. We don't like the slop it creates. So they decided that that's one solution that some platforms might take, which again is a fair enough way, right? That's a way to deal with the slop. You build a framework where the slop can't be made. But yeah, some people will go on to learn, right? They'll say, okay, I made slop, but I want to do better, and I know that I can do better because I've seen what other websites look like. What am I missing, right? What don't I know? Oh, CSS, again, HTML. Oh, JavaScript, here's this thing called JavaScript. Oh, no, I'm running against the limits of Neocities. Well, what else is out there? Oh, I can learn FTP, and I can upload my own HTML files to a server, right? And then now you're learning like skills, right? By making it open to more people, anyone can get started more easily, and off they go. Some people are going to learn. I think an analogy that kind of has entered my brain too in this stuff is like if you give me an axe, an excellent axe, a wonderfully crafted axe, I will not suddenly be an excellent, wonderful lumberjack. Got ahead of myself. Because the analogy, of course, right? We have LLMs. We can give people LLMs. We can give people Neocities. They're not instantly going to be good website makers, good programmers, good artists, whatever, just because you gave them a tool that lets them produce the thing very easily. But again, you can now. You get that start. And I think so that's one angle. I think we're going to have people who get started. I think another angle, though, is that being able to make something quickly and good enough kind of always wins. Like, even if you don't like it. Like, to go back to programming, like, there was a time when programming was assembly or C or, I don't know, languages that I never learned. COBOL? I don't know. And then when languages like Java came out, I remember when I was in college, people learning Java, there was absolutely this sentiment of like, Java's not good. That's not what real programmers do. Real programmers don't use Java. Real programmers use C, or probably assembly, blah, blah, blah. Java won't be as efficient, right? But like, it doesn't matter. That's not what matters. It's slower to work in assembly and C. It has more issues, right? It's not as expressive. Like Java comes along and says, or C++ even, right? Oh, I've got objects. Ooh, objects, right? Those are very intuitive. A lot of people can speak objects. Now you can speak to more people. You're not saying like, oh, there's a jump command and we got to stick shit in some registers. Like, no one wants to do assembly. You can't even talk to people about assembly. C++, objects that you can act on. Ooh, we can talk about that with other people. Java, no more segmentation faults, pretty much. Way fewer memory leaks, right? You've got safety on your array access. You're not going to have array out of bounds, which is like a whole class of like security vulnerability that still affects software today. All of these things make the programming easier and safer to do, and also make it less efficient. It is absolutely true that it is not as like finely crafted or something because you didn't program the individual instructions down to the CPU, but it doesn't matter. That's not what counts in the end. And even in languages like Java or C#, because I know more C#, people still say, because there's often still a decision point, even in a language. I'll go back to C#, right? You can write a little for loop that manually adds some things up, or takes an average or whatever. Or you can use like these delegates, I don't know, these slick ways to transform objects and everything. And it is less performant. It creates more allocations and all these things. Blah, 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 getting technical. But it reads more clearly. It's easier for the next programmer to come along when you have left the job or whatever, or even you in 6 months when you've forgotten everything you did 6 months ago. You come and look at this code. You want it to be easy to understand. It being easier to understand is way more important than being efficient in like 90x% of scenarios. Even right in the high level things. This is what we know. Easier to understand, faster to write, faster to change. These are what win out over like, oh, are you a real programmer? Oh, you a real lumberjack. I don't know. Did you build a house? Could you do it quickly and cheaply? That's what matters. Um, and I forget lumberjack. I shouldn't even talk about building things with wood. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I'm a programmer. What is easier to read and understand than code that you don't have to read or understand because an LLM did it? Like nothing. That is maximum ease of reading and comprehension and communication. People have been wanting this for forever. I remember talking to people, I was like, oh, I wish I could just tell the computer what I want to do. Now you can. Awesome. I do think it is still useful, kind of going back to that lumberjack example, even though I said I wasn't going to. It's still useful to know the basics, right? People will always say that, and I think it's appropriate. It's always true. Even forget about AI. Suppose you're doing web development. Let's even say you're using PHP. Ugh, PHP. So high level. Blah, blah, blah. Why in college then did I learn binary and hexadecimal and assembly and CPU pipelines and I wrote an emulator? Why learn all those things? I don't use 90% of it in 90% of my working or for fun life when I'm programming for fun. It is still useful to know the fundamentals. Everyone knows that, and it's still true. I mean, to talk CPU pipeline and assembly. Like as a programmer, you might know that loops can get unrolled. Well, that's an efficiency thing, and maybe by knowing that fact, by knowing how compilers work and how assembly works. I think the first kind of thing you can take away from that is, I don't need to be super efficient with a lot of my code a lot of the time because actually at the compiler level, that all gets done for me. Someone else kind of figured out that problem. So I thought I've been doing things efficiently, but actually it didn't really matter. But I do know that in these places they can't do that. They can't possibly definitionally because I know how things work under the hood. They can't have made that part more efficient. So if I do care about efficiency here, maybe I should do something different. Again, you have to know what's going on under the hood to even be able to make those calls. Or knowing hexadecimal. I think hexadecimal is an interesting example because lots of people know hex from color codes on the internet, right? Maybe you don't even know it's hexadecimal, but you're like, FF00CC. That's going to be a purpley, reddy purple color. I know hexadecimal. But if there's some things that are easier to debug. If you're familiar with Unicode codes and things like that could come up. You might be looking at some funny text expressed in some funny way. I don't know, right? You can come up and you'll be faster than another developer if you already know those things. If you don't have to Google it or copy paste it into Claude now because you just already know. That's even faster than having to talk. It's just knowing. So anyway, I think it'll always be helpful. And if I had to predict the future, which is a dangerous thing to do, no one should try to predict the future, but I'm going to try anyway. I'm going to ignore my own advice. If I had to predict the future, I think we will keep teaching people C and C++ and Java and C# and Python and JavaScript and PHP and SQL and all these things, all these languages that we use today, even if we won't be using them in 5 to 10 years. Much like assembly, it's still good to know the basics. It will be good to know those programming languages. It will be good to know variables. It will still be good to know about functions because when you have a funky problem and you're trying to express it to Claude does know those things. You can ask it. You can say, is it because of a variable or function? And Claude, like a human, kind of picks up on what you do or don't know how to talk about. I notice this all the time. If I start talking to it in a little bit of French, it starts responding in a little bit of French. How fun is that? If you start talking to it about functions, it's going to say, functions. It doesn't have an internal thought process in that same way, but it seems to respond in kind. It kind of gets your level, intuits your level. Again, intuit is a strange word to use in that context, but you get the point. These skills will still be useful, but it's going to become, I think, like assembly, where it's for 90% of what you do, it's not going to matter. 90% of that knowledge won't be useful for 90% of what you do, but every now and again, you're going to have a problem, and you'll be better than the next person if you know about functions and variables, if you know about compilers and assembly and hexadecimal and blah, 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 all the way down. Maybe there's something cool I would know if I knew what capacitors were doing in my computer. I don't know. I'm not a hardware is I think where my knowledge ends. I don't know what's going on with most hardware. I know that my PC still knows about diskette drives, even though it shouldn't. I don't know if they finally got that out of the BIOS. But anyway, Whatever. There's so much to know. There's infinite things to know, and the more you know is always better. But no one is sad that there's like chainsaws, let alone axes. No one is still crying about Neocities. And I suspect in a few years, no one's going to be bothered about AI or LLMs. It's just another tool. It's just another wonderful tool that has lowered barriers, which isn't a problem. To get back to the original point, to get back to the video. But go watch that video. Go watch his videos in general. Again, Kevin Powell's a lovely, wonderful dude. And if you have ideas in your brain and you want to make them, even if you're not a programmer, ask Claude to program for you. And when you start running into the limits, learn a little bit of programming. Learn as much as you need. It's great. What a lovely tool. All right. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Bye. Play my games on Steam. I'll have links in the description. Bye.